So yeah, we wanted to just introduce some special guests this webinar because you'll be getting your school report soon, and we wanted to sort of give you a sense of all that you can do with them and inspire you to hopefully share them with your principals, share them with your teachers, and really incorporate them into your planning. So we are going to start off with two special guests from District 23 in Central Okanagan, and they are going to share with you a little bit about how they help all of the schools in their district take school data and use it to help build well-being plans for all of their schools. So we are going to be talking to Janelle and Tricia Penny. They are both health promoting schools coordinators in the Okanagan, and this is a program that's cross-funded by both the district and Interior Health. And there's a health promoting schools committee in the district that includes the teachers union, a parents committee, representatives from health and the school district that work together to really address issues of physical health and education, mental health, healthy eating programs, and community and social health programs in the school system. And Janelle and Tricia were both teachers themselves previously and now share this role for Okanagan. I've actually had the chance to interview them before and really enjoyed my conversation. There's a lot of amazing work that they're doing. And I'm going to be sharing that on Discover MDI in the near future to talk about some of the programs that we're running. But the reason I really brought them here today was to talk about their work with the school data and how they help each school in their district. So let us introduce them. Can you unmute them? All right, guys, you should be unmuted. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, hello.
Okay, welcome. All right, so we have on the line Tricia. Do you want to say hi?
Hi there.
And Janelle?
Hello.
Hi. Janelle, you're a little bit quiet, so when it's your turn to speak, you might want to either get closer to the phone or just talk excitedly. But
that's my natural tendency, so.
Okay, great. So I have a lovely picture of a beach in Peachland here, just so that we can all think of fonder seasons and get away from the snow that's currently coming out of our windows here. But I thought I would just sort of hand it off to you guys in a second. I just wanted to thank you very much for both joining us today at the end of your workday.
No problem.
All right, so I thought you could start by just telling us how this got started in your district. How did you start working with schools with school data?
This started many years ago now, where we were looking at ways to explore student well-being, and we didn't have any way of really looking at where our school settings were currently at in terms of well-being, whereas we had data collections around literacy and numeracy. And so as a district, we started exploring what options were out there for us. And then when we learned about the MDI and gathered information about it, it actually went through our district health promoting schools committee, and they reviewed the process and helped us get the support we needed from the district at the trustee level so that we could use funds from our district to support the implementation of the MDI. So it was a couple-year process to go through that scenario. And then through their support and the support of our district, we've now been able to have our third year of implementing the MDI. We just finished year 3 at the grade 4 level.
And I think you mentioned to me that there was a sort of a launch event with schools maybe after the first year of MDI, and now that your meetings with them are sort of like additional touch points. Is that true?
Yeah, so we had Dr. Kimberly Shonert-Reichel, who I'm sure you're familiar with, come to our district and speak to all of our administrators on the importance of the MDI, what the data could show and help us and guide our conversations with. And we also invited teachers to that as well so that they could better equip and understand as to why we would be asking them to go through this process. So there's been various iterations of sharing that knowledge and kind of garnering excitement around why would we want to take the steps to do this.
Yeah, it really helped having help come and do that initial roadshow for us and hosting for us that event where we were able to bring teachers and administrators together to learn more about the MDI, what it was, why it was coming to their school, and why we were asking them to participate in it. As an unknown, that was a really helpful, I think, first step for teachers as we move through this process year by year, and teachers become familiar with it, particularly if they're not new to the school or new to teaching grade 4, then they're starting to see more of why it's useful and how beneficial that information and knowledge can be. But that initial roadshow really helped build that momentum from the start.
I think really working on understanding the why for all of us is really that important starting and launching piece. So the why for us as educators, as us as administrators, and also for the students to understand why. Why are we here today asking you these questions?
This feedback from many students, including my own daughter who was in grade 4 the first year that we administered the survey, is the excitement that they have that we're actually interested in their personal lives. And it was neat when my daughter came home from school and said, yeah, we filled this out, and I asked her, why do you think you filled it out? And she just was excitedly telling me, oh, it's been so long since our teachers have been our age and they want to know what it's like to be us again.
That's great.
Yeah.
So you have 31 elementary schools in your district, and you meet with every one of them to go through their data. And I'm just wondering, what is your personal process for preparing before you have those meetings with your schools?
Well, we spend a lot of time reviewing the reports, which we're lucky to be in a position to be able to help us support being able to do that. We often just kind of pick out a couple of strengths to point out, because it's obviously a rich data set. So there's a lot of information to share, and you kind of have to zone in on what are a couple of positive things that we can share with the administration team when we first meet with them. And then from there, we kind of think about what might be some possible questions that they might bring up, and we kind of just strategize a little bit before we go into the school building.
And so if you could sort of just place us there, walking in, who's at the table? How many people are there? And what does the flow of that meeting look like?
Typically, our initial meeting is just with the principal of the school and possibly the vice principal if there is one at that particular elementary school. We have some that have vice principals as well. And we will sit down with those two individuals. We'll have sent them their data prior to, and then we'll bring the data with us in a hard copy as well when we arrive. There's now I can't remember the name of it, a booklet that you have produced at HELP that also outlines the different questions and how they came to be and which questions within the survey match certain parts of the report. We found that tool. Can you help me what that's called, Michael?
Yes, it's the MDI Technical Guide.
Yes, thank you. So we actually find that technical guide to be very helpful as well to help the administrators understand how certain results within the survey came to be, and to explain some of the background behind some of the questions for them.
And so you said the initial meeting was with the principal and or the vice principal, if there is one at the school. Does that meeting set ever get larger with you, or did they then take it away and have subsequent meetings on their own?
Yeah, we've seen both models used, some in which we've simply just after that meeting have shared the slide deck of our district slides and results, shared the deck with them, and the principal then has gone and shared it in his or her own staff meeting. But then in other circumstances, we've actually been asked to come back either to an afternoon staff meeting to share a little bit more and dig a little bit deeper, ask some guiding questions with the staff and explore those neighborhood maps. And then even one step further is we've been invited to a few schools to spend a half day or a full day with them, typically on an implementation day or a professional development day, where we have the time and opportunity to, one, dig deeper into what the data might be sharing and telling us about what's happening in their school environment, and then also to think about what are strategies and supports and resources that we can access to help support some of maybe the challenges that have been identified or just the questions that rise up.
Yeah, I wondered if you could share what some of those common questions are, either in the smaller meetings that you have just with the administration or the larger ones you were just mentioning.
The questions that we pose to the groups to have them explore deeper into the data, first of all, we get them to just take an overall look at our district data and acknowledge things that they like about what they see, things that they wonder about the data that they're seeing, and any next steps that they might just in their initial viewing of it be thinking of in that moment. And then as we start to dig deeper into their particular school data, we have them grouped in small groups, and they look at strengths that they are recognizing, questions that are arising for them. And then we actually have them look at choosing 2 measures that they might be interested in improving or in focusing on at a deeper level.
So in a conversation that I had earlier with you, you both mentioned that you know, this work that you do with the administration to go through the data, focus on a couple of highlights, that actually feeds into school plans and an inquiry process that each school has. I wondered if you could talk to us a little bit about what that looks like how you take the start of this data, which is, you know, an excellent start, but it's just the beginning, and how that turns into a school plan.
So for one example we'll share, we spent in October for our implementation day, we spent a whole day with one school that at that point, by the time we arrived, had already decided that social emotional learning, that it would be one of their key goals for their school learning plan. But they wanted to know, when we follow a spirals of inquiry process, they wanted to know when they're kind of developing their hunches around that, or doing a scan and using different research to help guide their plan. And so they used the MDI, and we were able to be invited in to share with them, here's the specific results of your school. What do you think in terms of the social emotional area of what you're hearing through the voices of your grade 4s? How can that kind of support and guide of the direction of where we want to go? So we know our goals, social emotional learning, but what specifically do we feel are challenges and strengths of what we're hearing? Recognizing that that is only the voices of the grade 4 students, but you know, when you start to align and triangulate all the data sources from, for example, our EDI results, our MDI, and if in the case if we have grade 7s in the building, even from our adolescent health survey as well, of just trying to use multiple data sources to inform that we're heading in the right direction.
Since you've been doing this for a few years, I'm wondering if you can, I guess, reflect on what you've learned through the process. Like, how are you doing it differently now than you might have when you first started?
That's tricky. I think it's just an ongoing development in the sense that making sure that we let schools know that we are available for the support even in the implementation if they need it. So we do have some schools where it's helpful if there are extra adult bodies for the administration of the survey to help make sure that all students are able to complete the survey and to make sure that they have enough assistance to help with those students who need extra support. And so we've been making sure that that support has been available to schools. And I think as well as schools get to know that we can be called upon to work with them at deeper levels, we've been able to work at breakfast meetings with schools, go in at lunch and learns, or go in on implementation days, and that we are able to just be there as another source of information for them as they're working on these plans and developing school goals and working towards school improvements, that this is another way that they can be supported with it.
Another thing, if I could add to, is knowing that it's not all on the role of our school communities to help support support our students in thriving, that there's also a role that the greater community plays. And so by engaging our community partners as well and sharing data with them at any opportunity that we're invited to share what we're hearing from the voices of our kids with greater community partnerships has been valuable as well, because we recognize that they all play a role and that it's all truly takes the village to help support this. So I think trying to go from that aspect, it doesn't seem as overwhelming as well.
Great. You know, I also just wondered if you could talk a little bit about how you interact with them, you know, after this process. You know, you've had these meetings with them. Occasionally they've come to ask you to come back, but what does it look like to be able to provide them support over, let's say, the whole year? Is that a role that you are able to play in terms of the development of the plans?
One of the things that we try to do in the springtime is hold more of a community meeting. So this brings together not only teachers and administrators from the school, but as Janelle was just saying, from their broader school community. And once the data has come in, bringing everyone together again to look at, now that we have a few years of data, now we can start looking at maybe trends that we're starting to see, things that maybe surprise us now that maybe weren't there last year, just starting to look together and again, allowing the broader community supports to also allow themselves to see where they fit in that picture and how we can all work together to meet our common goals.
Too, if we reflect on that, like we're 3 years into our journey here, that every year there seems to be more and more engagement and more asks of us, and us needing to equip ourselves better too to help support them too. So it's definitely learning from all aspects.
I feel like we're in the infancy of our journey, and we are learning a lot every year, and the engagement is increasing each year as everyone else becomes more familiar with it as well. And then next year, because our grade 4 cohort that we began with will be in grade 7, our plan is to survey our grade 7s next year so that we can reflect on their data from grade 7 and then back from grade 4.
Great. Yeah, I think it'll be really interesting to see that trajectory.
Yeah.
The last question that I had for you guys, you know, we think a lot about the importance of, you know, well-being, of having this data set available to be able to inform our plans. I think we all know, you know, deeply know that that's true. But I wondered if you could share a little bit about, I guess, what keeps you going, like just things that are maybe a bit more feeling based. Like this is a lot of work going around to all of these schools, like including all the other programs that you guys are running. So kind of what's in it for you? How do you keep going?
I think we have a passion for supporting our vulnerable students and making sure that we are bringing things into place and meeting the needs of all of our students, and in ways that maybe traditionally we haven't focused on as intentionally. And for Janelle and I, we definitely are driven through supporting those students and wanting to help them have a greater sense of well-being. So if we can do that at a school level and support our schools, then we're excited to do that.
I think too, I could just add, we're also moms, so we see this value in supporting our community, whether it's our school communities or our greater community, of knowing that our kids, we ultimately want them to thrive. So I think that's one of our underlying values that really supports the work, and probably part of the reason why we chose to be educators to begin with is we're passionate about kids. That keeps us going.
Great. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I want to let everyone in the audience know that we'll be putting up a champion profile of Janelle and Tricia on our website fairly soon. And at that point, you'll be able to ask them questions. We have a direct question button there if you want to know a little bit more about anything that you heard today or any of the great programs that they're running in Central Okanagan. And yeah, thank you guys. It's been wonderful having you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.